There's some big news and events going on in Bitcoin, as the Bitcoin ETF is everything that people want to be talking about right now. Obviously, it would be a big event. It is something that everyone is focused on because everyone believes that once it comes out, the price would go up pretty drastically, pretty quickly. And, for some reason, that's the only thing people really care about. Obviously, people want to make money. But if you are staring at this ETF and just hoping that it gets approved to make the money, to make your number go up, then you might have a little too much on the line invested in something if you care that much. Because at the end of the day, if you actually look at it and see this ETF being delayed, if it takes a longer time to actually get out, that can be a good thing because you can get cheaper Bitcoin and buy more Bitcoin for less dollars. And the long run, if it plays out and Bitcoin over the long term is better and goes up in value, that would work out better than the short term of hoping that an ETF pushes the price to 40K or 100K or something, and then you celebrate that. Don't get me wrong, a Bitcoin ETF would be absolutely massive. It's a spot Bitcoin ETF. That's the thing we're really looking for. And this is something that obviously the entire Bitcoin Twitter is talking about. Everyone in finance is kind of focusing on this. And this is kind of an important thing, I think. This thing right here, some of you are overextended in Bitcoin, desperate for a pump. ETF approval just furthers institutional capture. We need more P2P self-custodial adoption, which sure, I think that's fair, but I also think that this is something you can't avoid, right? This institutional adoption thing. That's what most people talk about when you talk about the price, because people who have a ton of money are institutions, and tons of money can pump the price. But I just don't think, like, you can say you don't like institutions to be in Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter what you like because anyone can use Bitcoin for anything that they want. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I would agree you should self custody your Bitcoin, put it in a cold storage wallet, have your own keys. Absolutely should be that way. When, especially if you're an individual, obviously these companies need different types of ways to go about it because of the rules in place. So that's why they really want this ETF. But for an individual person, you could very simply and very easily take Bitcoin, self custody it, and have no problems. But the hype that we see from this ETF decision, and people saying, "Oh my God, it's coming! It's gonna be so great! It's gonna be coming in the next month! It's gonna be amazing!" Chances are, if you're championing that and you want it to happen right now, chances are you might have too much money in Bitcoin, which can be possible, right? A lot of people would say you can't have too much money in Bitcoin because obviously you can never have enough Bitcoin. But if you're constantly thinking about the price, constantly looking and hoping for things to move the price up, and panicking when the price goes down, then you probably have too much money in Bitcoin, and you might have to rearrange yourself so that you're not constantly staring at the price, because that's not a healthy way to go about anything. Especially when we just got some pretty interesting news from the FTX court case thing going on, that Caroline Ellison came out. She testified that SBF instructed her to keep selling Bitcoin if it's over $20,000, and the Bitcoin they sold was stolen customer funds. So if you're betting on short-term price moves and you're constantly looking at the price of Bitcoin and really panicking when it goes down and hoping for it to go up and all this stuff, you have things like this going on that can push the price down. Now, they can only do this for so long, right? Obviously, eventually, even if FTX didn't collapse as a Ponzi scheme, eventually they would run out of customers' Bitcoin to steal and not have enough to continue dumping the price. And then the price would naturally go up as people continue DCAing in and more people buy in. Now, could this be happening today? Absolutely. You look at Binance, they could be doing the exact same thing. They have tons of Bitcoin from their customers, and they also have a coin called BNB that they're desperately trying to defend a peg price for that. So there's theories that they could be doing the exact same thing, selling Bitcoin, maybe not having like a certain number to keep it under, but definitely possibly selling Bitcoin to support their BNB token, because there's margin levels liquidation things going on there. So it'd be interesting, right, to see if they're playing the exact same game. And maybe, who knows, maybe Binance one day falls and goes down and we have the Binance trial and all of this comes out that they were doing the exact same things. Wouldn't really surprise me, though. And if you needed a bigger reason to think that the bear market might be coming to an end, might be slowing down, we do have Jim Cramer, the king of calling things absolutely backwards and wrong and being on the absolute wrong side every time he says something. And now he's been talking about Bitcoin and how, it's terrible and all that. So usually, if you go against Jim Cramer, that's going to end up pretty good for you.
Can't be in something where Mr. Bitcoin is about to go down big. I would not touch crypto in a million years. These people who own these things should not own them. They shouldn't own them. I do think you're an idiot.
So obviously, Jim Cramer, saying it's a bad thing, saying Bitcoin's terrible, saying crypto's terrible, but, who cares about crypto really? But Bitcoin's the big one, saying people who own it are idiots, right? And this is obviously someone that if you bet against what he says, you typically do pretty well. So maybe that's the shining light here because, as we know, the bear market has been absolutely brutal so far. It's been the longest bear market for Bitcoin ever, and we're still trudging along, seeing where it goes. Obviously, with the recession, different things coming up could be affecting Bitcoin as factors that have Bitcoin's never seen, right? Bitcoin's only been around in lower interest rate environments, pretty decent economy stuff, no real recessions going through. So this could be the first kind of test price-wise. Fundamentally, nothing's going to happen to Bitcoin. TikTok next block. It's not going to stop producing blocks. The blockchain's not going to shut down. You're not going to not be able to send Bitcoin. The price will move. The price will fluctuate. But who cares? Short term, who cares, right? The price doesn't really matter because the fundamentals of Bitcoin are insanely strong. And if Bitcoin works out how a lot of people think that it will, then the price will follow suit. But short term, you can't predict if it's going up or down at all. And the pro-positive Bitcoin hasn't gone anywhere, right? Obviously, 2020, a lot of people were pro-Bitcoin. Maybe it fell off a little bit, but recently, more and more people have been coming out kind of pro-Bitcoin. BlackRock has their ETF submitted. All these trillion-dollar fund managers, they have their Bitcoin ETF submitted. And even now, billionaire investors, really isn't even anything new anymore, saying, Bitcoin's great. Paul Tudor Jones, worth over $8.1 billion, says, think Bitcoin takes on a larger percentage of your portfolio. I like Bitcoin. So, maybe this is all setting up, right? The institutions, Wall Street, all these guys with the big money, kind of saying, I like Bitcoin doing this and that, and kind of setting themselves up because originally it was, Bitcoin is terrible. Don't talk about it. Don't mention it. Lose your job if you do that. To now, all of the billionaire investors and fund managers and trillion-dollar funds are coming out and saying, this Bitcoin thing, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a good thing. It's something we want to get involved in. But at the end of the day, all of this stuff going on in Bitcoin is just noise, right? It doesn't really matter. Fundamentally, Bitcoin's not going to change whether or not an ETF gets approved. The price obviously can go up and down. I think even looking at longer term, 10 years, 20 years, it's really not going to matter that much for this type of stuff. But, everyone's going to be looking at it because it will make the price move. You should really be looking at it as the longer these things take to play out, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It could keep the Bitcoin price from just skyrocketing up and give you more time to DCA in, buy more Bitcoin, invest more, and be able to enjoy it more when the price goes up like that. That should be your view on it. It shouldn't be, I want it to happen now. Why not? Why not wait a little bit, maybe even a couple years, and then stack along the way, and you'll actually end up being better off. But we'll see where all this goes. I think, obviously, Bitcoin's not going away. I think it's only getting more popular with Wall Street, with funds, with the investing world. And, it's going to be a snowball effect from there. That's going to do it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in my next video.